Attention. Even before you finish this first line, something inside you has already begun to stir, a slight tremor, almost imperceptible, but deep enough to signal that what follows is not just another text, not just another explanation about wealth or psychology. It's a calling, a silent shock, a door opening within you. Carl Jung said that certain moments arrive like a subtle blow to the unconscious, unnoticed by the rational mind, but powerful enough to alter the destiny of whoever dares to listen. This is one of those moments. And if you continue reading, inevitably something will be broken. Something will be, and something may never be the same again. Some people spend their entire lives searching for external signs to justify their failure, their fears, and their limitations, as if life were a chaotic scenario where nothing makes sense. But Jung asserted the opposite. Everything makes sense, just not to the conscious part of the mind. What you call chance is the pattern you refuse to see. And at this very moment, before you even realize it, that pattern is trying to reveal itself to you. Not through magic formulas or empty promises, but through a psychological mechanism. It's always been active, always influencing your results, always shaping your relationship with wealth. The only reason you haven't accessed this before is simple. No one taught you to look where it really is. Most people believe that wealth is a consequence of effort, discipline, or rare opportunities. But Jung deeply distrusted these superficial explanations. For him, human destiny is decided long before action. It is born in the psyche, in internal images, in the symbols that silently organize each person's life. Until you make conscious what lives in the unconscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it destiny. This phrase, repeated and quoted in so many ways, has never been truer than now. Because if there is a secret you have ignored, a blind spot that has hindered your growth, a silent force that has multiplied problems instead of wealth, it is hidden precisely in that psychological space you have never learned to explore. Here comes the first provocative question. How many important decisions have you made consciously? Financial, professional, or emotional choices were the result of real clarity. And how many were merely automatic responses, created by old fears, buried traumas, inherited beliefs, other people's voices that you adopted as your own? Jung said that we carry within us buried versions of who we were, shadows of what we denied, remnants of pains we didn't resolve. And all of this, without exception, forms the hidden foundation upon which we build our material. It's uncomfortable to admit, but inevitable. No one fights external enemies before defeating their internal ones. Perhaps you've already felt this in your body, that feeling that something bigger is waiting for you, but it always eludes you. That impression that you're close, but never quite reach it. That repetition of almost succeeding. This almost is a psychic signature. Jung would argue that it's a blockage placed by your own shadow. The part of you that doesn't accept certain expansions because it doesn't believe you are capable, worthy, or prepared. And the question that follows is inevitable. How many opportunities have you missed? Not because it wasn't the right time, but because your inner psyche was programmed to reject them. How many paths have you never opened simply because the image you carry of yourself is smaller than the person you truly are? The truth is that there is an ancient tension within you that you have ignored your whole life. A part that desires to grow and another that fears growth. A part that dreams of abundance and another that associates abundance with pain, judgment, or a part that wants to move forward and another that pulls you back. For Jung, these internal tensions are symbolic battles. They are what define everything. It's not circumstances. It's not chance. It's not the economy. It's not the government, the job, or the market. The conflict between the light you recognize and the shadow you refuse to admit exists. And before you think this is just theory, consider something simple. Whenever you approached a change that was too big, something inside you, whenever you had the chance to dare, whenever a door opened, another part of you said it wasn't the right time. This isn't a lack of courage, not laziness, it's not a lack of discipline, it's psychic programming. Jung believed that the human psyche creates self-protection mechanisms seem like sabotage, but are actually desperate attempts to keep you within familiar territory, even if that territory is limited. And now, a second point of tension arises. All this is true. What lies behind this programming? Why would you maintain a reduced version of yourself? Who within you benefits from this? Jung would call this voice the autonomous complex, an emotional structure that acts on its own, repeating patterns and directing decisions without you realizing it. The complex is not the enemy, but it is ignorant. It tries to protect you from old pains without realizing that it ends up distancing you from what is new and better. And until you confront it, it will continue to direct your life. Right now, you might be feeling a slight internal pressure, a strange sensation, as if you were about to perceive something that has always been near, never named. Jung said that this is the first sign of psychological awakening. It's when the conscious mind begins to see the outlines of the unconscious. It's when symbols begin to organize themselves, when loose pieces begin to fit together. Don't be alarmed by this feeling. It's part of the process. The psyche reacts when it perceives that the truth is approaching. the threshold between what you've always known and what you're about to discover. You're at a starting point, same point described by Jung as the entrance to the inner labyrinth. Nothing is entirely clear. Everything is poised to emerge. The question that remains, and which will accompany you to the next part, is simple. And if there is a secret you've ignored your whole life, and if that secret is the element that multiplies or destroys wealth, what exactly is this silent force? Hold your steps until now. From the moment you truly understand that the shadow is not just an abstract concept, but an active presence silently shaping your every step, something begins to change within you. Jung described the shadow as the sum of everything you reject, fear, avoid, or hide even from yourself. And it is precisely this part that usually takes control when you least expect it. Perhaps you never imagined that your financial life could be directly linked to these internal aspects. But consider something simple. How many times have you approached a real opportunity and hesitated? How many times have you had a clear, strong, almost inevitable idea, and instead of acting, found a perfect excuse to postpone it? How many times have you convinced yourself that it wasn't the right time, it wasn't enough, it wasn't for you? This behavior, repeated over the years, is not the result of chance, laziness, or lack of competence. It is the shadow at work. Imagine a seemingly ordinary situation. You receive a job or business offer that could change your life. Your heart races, your mind starts imagining possibilities. Everything seems to align. Something, strange, heavy feeling begins to whisper that it's not safe, that it might be risky, that you're not ready. You try to rationalize, but inside an unease paralyzes you. You tell yourself you're being prudent, that you're waiting for the right moment. But deep down, if it were truly prudence, you would know. What you feel is something else, a fear that wasn't born now. This fear has roots. It's ancient, it's emotional. It's your shadow trying to protect you from a pain you don't even remember experiencing anymore. Jung said that the shadow acts as a poorly informed guardian. It believes that keeping you small is keeping you safe. And that's how, without realizing it, you let slip opportunities that have multiplied your wealth and completely changed your trajectory. Another clear image emerges when you think about money more directly. Perhaps you've experienced moments when you received an unexpected sum of money and, for no apparent reason, ended up spending it all quickly. Or perhaps you've noticed that whenever your life starts to improve financially, something happens. Unforeseen expense, impulsive choice, a seemingly silly mistake, chaotic situation that arises nowhere. At first glance, it seems like bad luck. But, according to Jung, nothing is random when it comes to the psyche. He said that the unconscious mind organizes itself symbolically and coherently, even when it seems chaotic. If you carry a deep belief that you don't deserve prosperity, or that money brings danger, conflict, or loss, your shadow will do anything to return you to the state it considers safe, if that state is scarcity. And perhaps you're thinking that this doesn't make sense, that you truly want to prosper, that this is your conscious intention. But that's where Jung warns. The unconscious doesn't respond to stated desires, but rather to stored emotional truth. Rational intention is only the surface. The deep psyche is what. And when the deep psyche believes that wealth means exposure, vulnerability, judgment, excessive responsibility, or even rejection, it will make invisible moves to protect you. This is why so many people live in a seemingly inexplicable cycle. They want to grow, but always return to the same point. This compulsive return is a clear sign that the shadow is in control. Now imagine an everyday scene, the kind that happens to anyone, but which takes on a different meaning when viewed from Jung. You wake up one day determined to change your financial life, write down goals, you make plans, you jot down ideas, feel ready. But the next day, the energy disappears, the motivation cools, clarity vanishes. Life seems to return to its old rhythm, as if that decision had never existed, and you get frustrated, believing you failed again. But Jung would say that this isn't failure, it's internal conflict. The conscious part wants to move forward, but the unconscious part is trying to protect you from a future it associates with past danger. As long as you don't bring that part to light, continue to silently reverse your progress. That's why Jung talks so much about integrating this. She said that every rejected force returns as destiny, and that what you don't accept in yourself manifests as failure on the inside. Not because you are incapable, but because external life reflects the internal structure. This understanding is so profound that, when truly assimilated, transforms how you interpret every circumstance in your life. There is no more bad luck. There is no more randomness. There is no more it wasn't meant to be. There are only layers of the psyche trying to find balance. And it is precisely at this point that an uncomfortable revelation emerges. Perhaps you are not afraid of failing. Perhaps you are afraid of prospering, afraid of the responsibility that comes with success, afraid of becoming someone you don't know, afraid of surpassing people you love, afraid of losing control, afraid of being seen. Jung warned that the fear of one's own power is one of the most paralyzing forces of the psyche. The shadow fears what you could become. because this new you would represent a break with old identities that it tries to preserve. Here comes the most important part of this journey. You are beginning to see the mechanism. You are seeing what you never saw before. You are identifying internal movements that always seemed external. You are realizing how your automatic responses are, in fact, emotional memories disguised as rational decisions. This is the beginning of transformation. Because according to Jung, what is perceived ceases to control you from the shadows and begins to slowly dissolve in the light. It is essential that you understand one last truth. Nothing you have experienced so far was by chance, personal failure. It was simply your psyche trying to protect you from what associated with pain. But now that you are seeing beyond the veil, a question inevitably arises, the most important one up to the point. If the shadow controls your steps whenever you try to grow, what would happen if you finally faced it head-on, without fear, without escape, and without justification? From the moment you understand that the shadow operates silently, almost like a parallel intelligence within you, the need arises to look at something even deeper, the unconscious image that directs your life. Jung called this structure the primary image, a psychic mold that defines who you believe you are, what you think you deserve, and how far you allow you to go. This image is not created by reason, but by the emotional experiences that have marked your history, often even before you have full awareness of the world. That is precisely why, however much you desire to grow, if this primary image is programmed for scarcity, fear, or basic survival, your life will reflect exactly that. The wealth you seek will never be sustained by an identity that does not believe it is capable of receiving it. Perhaps you've never noticed this. Pay attention to how certain situations repeat themselves. No matter how many jobs, cities, or financial strategies you change, there's always an invisible limit that interrupts your progress, a kind of emotional boundary never fully crossed. Jung explained this phenomenon by saying that the unconscious functions as a regulatory system. When you start to stray too far from the internal image you carry, it creates resistance to pull you back into familiar territory. This isn't punishment, it's protection, but a misguided protection, as it was created from old pains and fears, not from your current reality. This understanding is essential for you to. So many people live in a continuous cycle of almost succeeding, but never truly achieving. Now I ask you, if this invisible limit always holds you back at the same point, is it that you really don't know where the problem lies? Or are you simply avoiding looking in the right direction? Could it be that the biggest secret you've ignored isn't external, but rather the hidden image that structures all your decisions? When Jung said that the unconscious compensates for the conscious, he meant that the psyche always seeks balance between what you think and what you truly feel. If you think big but feel small, you will be treated as small. If you say you want to prosper but fear accountability, your life will adjust to not desire. This is how the hidden mechanism of psyche works. It always adjusts to emotional truth, never to rest. This is one of the reasons why so many people accumulate knowledge, techniques, and methods for growth, but never manage to produce. It's because they are trying to build a new life on an inner image that remains old. And Jung said that you don't liberate yourself simply through willpower. You liberate yourself by confronting the symbolic truth that lives within you. And here I need to interrupt the flow for a moment, as an essential question arises at this. Who would you be if you stopped believing in all the limitations you've carried since childhood? And more importantly, what within you still fears that this greater version exists? Sometimes, life seems to create repeated situations just to force you to see something you didn't see the first. It's no coincidence when several opportunities arise and dissolve in the same way. It's no accident when relationships, businesses, or projects always end with similar patterns. For Jung, repetition is a symbol, an attempt by the unconscious to reveal something you insist on ignoring. When you fail for different reasons, that's life. But when you fail in exactly the same way, that's the psyche. And it is precisely at this point that the key to multiplying wealth appears. As wealth, contrary to what they say, not the fruit of what you learn, is the fruit of what you allow yourself to be. Internal permission is the basis of everything. You only receive what your psyche believes it can sustain. That's why so many people lose opportunities as quickly as they gain them. The internal image cannot support expansion. And now, another inevitable challenge arises. What if your whole life you haven't struggled with a lack of resource, but rather with an emotional inability to see yourself as worthy of receiving? What if all your difficulties didn't stem from external factors, but from an internal inability to sustain what you've always? Jung said that true transformation doesn't happen when you change what you think, but when you change what you see within yourself. When the primary image is reconfigured, your entire external reality begins to reorganize itself almost naturally. What once seemed impossible becomes obvious. What seemed distant draws closer. What was heavy becomes light, and what seemed inaccessible transforms into a consequence. But this reconstruction is not merely psychological. It demands symbolic courage. It requires you to confront parts of yourself that you have avoided for years. It requires you to recognize that much of what you have experienced was created by you, by choice, by emotional programming. And here's another question that can't be ignored. You had the chance to rewrite your inner image right now, this very moment. Would you accept being someone completely new, even knowing that it means abandoning old versions of yourself? The image you hold defines your destiny because it functions as a psychic anchor. It keeps you always orbiting the same emotional territory, even when you try to move forward rationally. It's as if you have an internal map that only allows you to travel certain routes and rejects any attempt to explore larger territory. Jung compared this process to a kind of invisible prison built not by external bars, but by internal convictions impossible to perceive without deep introspection. And the key to this prison is not in the future, nor in action, nor in external knowledge. It lies in what you accept to see about yourself. But perhaps the most uncomfortable revelation is the image that controls your life, not who you are. It's who you decided to believe you were when you lacked the maturity to decide. An outdated version, frozen in time. And as long as you continue living through it, you will repeat the same cycles, make the same mistakes, and attract the same results. Wealth will always be a mirage, never a concrete experience. You need to understand one thing. Your life isn't resisting you. It's simply obeying the internal mold you never questioned. And now that you've begun to see that mold, an inevitable question approaches, the question that defines everything else. If your internal image dictates your reality, who are you when no one is watching? There's a point in life where everything seems to repeat itself in an endless cycle. And it's precisely at this point that Jung said, the psyche begins to reveal its deepest secrets. Have you ever had the feeling of being about to break through an invisible barrier, as if something inside you was ready, but at the same time a silent force was pulling you back? This moment is more important than it seems. It's the exact moment when consciousness touches the where the rational mind begins to perceive that there is an underground structure shaping everything. And it is here that something few people understand emerges. When the unconscious manifests it doesn't come as a clear idea, but as a discomfort, a repeated pattern, a persistent coincidence, or an impression that life is trying to get your attention. Jung said that when you are about to discover something important about yourself, the outside world begins to orchestrate seemingly random events to push you in the right. A simple but real example occurs with people who report constantly seeing the same numbers, encountering the same phrases, hearing the same messages from completely different. For many, this seems like superstition, but Jung called it synchronicity. Significant events that have no logical explanation, but appear as symbolic signs that something internal is emerging. Imagine someone who always struggles with financial insecurity, and just in the week they decide to confront this issue, begins to hear stories of overcoming adversity, finds books on prosperity in unlikely places, and receives invitations that seem too coincidental. For Jung, none of this is chance. It is the psyche preparing the ground for change. These signs often appear when the internal image is about to shatter. And the shattering almost always begins with something small, something seemingly unimportant. A person who has always been afraid to take risks makes a small, unexpected move, such as accepting a proposal they would normally refuse, or making an intuitive decision that deviates. Suddenly, this simple action generates gigantic consequences. Real-life accounts illustrate this in an almost unbelievable way. Like the case of a man who spent years trying to start a business and failing repeatedly, until the day he decided to follow an intuition, to give a symbolic gift to someone he respected. This minimal gesture opened doors he never imagined. One person recognized the value, introduced him to another, who introduced him to another, until a business that never took off transformed into a multi-million-dollar project in less than a year. He said it didn't make sense, but Jung would easily explain it. When the internal image changes, external reality reorganizes itself entirely around. And this leads us to a hard truth to accept. Change doesn't come from grand decisions, but from the symbolic moment when you break with your emotional programming. It's as if the universe is waiting for you to give a minimal sign that you're ready. When you give that sign, everything moves. But before that happens, Jung said you need to face an inevitable phenomenon, the impulse of resistance. The closer you get to real change, the greater the internal resistance. That's when you start to self-sabotage, procrastinate more, feel fear for no reason, lose focus, lose energy, get distracted by unimportant things. This isn't failure, defense. The unconscious fears losing control. It fears that you will abandon the narrative you've lived by for years. It fears that you will become a version of yourself it doesn't yet know. The breaking point arrives unexpectedly, often through seemingly negative situations. Jung told stories of people who only awakened to their true strength after experiencing losses, failures, or extreme situations. Not because suffering is necessary, but because it breaks down defenses and exposes the truth. Like the woman who lost her job and thought her life was over. But this event was precisely what revealed a dormant talent. She started selling something simple, almost unintentionally, just to survive. And within a few months, had created a lucrative brand that sustained her for years. She said it was fate, but Jung would say it was the work of the psyche. The loss was the trigger that broke the old internal image, allowing a new one to emerge. There are also improbable, almost absurd cases that reinforce the idea that there is a greater force organizing everything. See it. Like a young man who for years wanted to change his life but never had the courage. One day, out of pure curiosity, he decided to go for a walk along a different path, and on this walk he met a man selling antiques. They talked for a few minutes. Encounter changed. The object he bought that day, a seemingly worthless piece, was exactly the item a collector had been searching for years. The unexpected profit from this sale allowed him to put together his first project. It became the beginning of everything. When he recounted his story, he said, "It was luck." But Jung would reply, "It was meaning." The truth is that when you begin to approach the inner image that truly belongs to you, not the one created by trauma or conditioning, life reacts. It provides encounters, ruptures, insights, losses, opportunities that you could not have foreseen. Not because there is a predetermined mystical plan, but because the psyche influences how you interpret the world. When you change from within, the world changes because you see, react, and choose in different ways. Jung said that the unconscious acts like a magnetic field. It attracts circumstances that confirm the image you hold and repels what conflicts with it. And that's exactly why many sabotage their growth. They don't fear failure. They fear the impact success will have on their identity. They fear becoming someone they don't recognize. They fear that by breaking with the old image, everything that was familiar will cease to make sense. But Jung said, you don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This phrase isn't about pessimism. It's about courage. It's about emotional maturity. It's about accepting that to evolve, you need to abandon the old version that existed only to protect you. Now imagine what would happen if you truly allowed that internal image to shatter. Imagine letting go of justification. Imagine not backing down from expansion. Imagine not running away from the responsibility of becoming someone greater. And you feel a slight tension as you contemplate. That tension is the exact point where change began. Jung called this moment the shock of psychological truth. It's the moment when you recognize that everything that has limited you until now wasn't the world, it was you. And in recognizing this, reality ceases to be a threat and becomes a possibility. But before we move on, the inevitable question remains. If your inner image has enough power to shape your entire life, what is it about to reveal when you finally decide to cross that boundary? The real turning point begins when you realize that what you always treated as weakness was, in fact, the gateway to strength. Jung said that the shadow is not where you find monsters, but where you find parts of yourself that have been abandoned, forgotten, or distorted. And it is precisely when you begin to illuminate this inner region that something unexpected happens. The outside world begins spawned. Life changes its rhythm, as testing how far you are willing to go. Some situations intensify, others dissolve without warning, and often this creates the feeling that everything is getting out of control. But, according to Jung, this initial chaos is just a sign of reorganization. It is proof that your consciousness is breaking down old structures and making room for something completely new. Imagine for a moment that you begin to act differently, even subtly. You say no to something you've always accepted out of fear. You take a step towards something you've always desired, even trembling inside. You decide to speak the truth in a situation where you would have remained silent before. These gestures seem small, but they have a huge impact on the psyche. Jung said that every action consistent with your true essence acts as a watershed moment, because it breaks with the narrative the shadow has created around you. And it is precisely in this rupture tension begins. The shadow tries to pull you back into familiar territory, creating doubts, insecurities, and even external situations that seem to challenge you. Not because it wants to destroy you, but because it fears the unknown. It fears losing the role it has assumed for years. Perhaps you notice this clearly in simple areas of daily life, like when you finally decide to organize your finances and on the same day, an unexpected expense arises that throws you off balance. Or when you decide to start a project and something goes wrong at the first step. For many, this seems like a sign to give up. But Jung would say that this is the exact moment when you should persevere. Because the unconscious is testing your consistency. It wants to know if the decision is real or just a passing thought. This is where most people get lost, turning to the old image just when they were about to cross the border. In other cases, the upheaval comes through something even more disconcerting. People drift away, relationships change, situations that seem stable begin to. Life seems to push you away from everything that maintained your old identity. This is frightening, but necessary. Jung said, the psyche cuts symbolic ties that no longer serve the individuation. In other words, you begin to embrace your true strength. The world adjusts. Often, what held you back in the past needs to fall so that you can move forward. And although this may seem like loss, it is actually liberation. Some people experience surprising moments in this process. People who spent years trapped in jobs that drained their energy, but who never had the courage to leave, report that at the exact moment they began to change internally, something happened externally. They were fired or transferred. Initially, the shock is intense, but soon after, they realize that this impact was precisely the push they needed to start something new, something more aligned with who they really are. Jung said that life removes what does not correspond to your growth when you finally decide to grow internally. And this is one of the clearest proofs that the psyche is working in your favor, not against you. Another common example is that of someone who has always been afraid to expose their work to the world. They begin to confront this fear almost immediately. A situation arises that demands they present themselves more, speak more, show themselves more. This might seem like a coincidence, but Jung stated that when you touch the psychological truth that was repressed, the world responds with situations that demand exactly the expansion you try to avoid. It's as if reality is finally aligned with what your soul has always asked. Now comes the most intense part of this process: integration. Illuminating the shadow. Enough. Seeing your limitations, identifying your patterns is true change occurs when you accept the responsibility of uniting all of this with your consciousness. Jung said that integrating the shadow is embracing parts of yourself that you tried to destroy. It's recognizing that what you've always avoided is the source of your power. But this process is emotionally uncomfortable. It's like looking into a mirror you've avoided your whole life. It's realizing that everything that held you back wasn't the world, but old versions of yourself, protecting memories you no longer even remember. And it is in this sensitive moment that an unexpected twist occurs. You begin to feel a strange kind of strength. It's not euphoria. It's not exaggerated optimism. It's not fleeting excitement. It's a quiet, almost silent strength that arises from within, as if something were returning to its place. There is no logical explanation, but there is a clarity that did not exist before. Jung called this sensation a return to the self, the essential part of who you are, the part that exists before fears, or masks, or narratives. It is the moment when the psyche stops fighting against you and begins to walk with you. But that doesn't mean everything becomes. On the contrary, some important decisions begin here. Life presents you with choices that can no longer be avoided. You feel that if you retreat now, you will return to the old cycle. But if you move forward, you will enter a completely new phase in. That's scary. However, this fear is no longer the old fear, paralyzing. It is the fear that precedes transformation. It is the fear that indicates you are stepping onto territory you have never explored, but which has always belonged. And at the heart of this transformation emerges the most powerful revelation of this journey. Everything you sought in the external world, opportunities, recognition, security, prosperity, always depended on this inner moment. The instant you integrate your shadow, acknowledge your strength, break free from the old mold, and allow the new image to begin to form, reality doesn't change first. You change. The world merely follows. And before we move on to the final stage of this journey, we need to face one last question, perhaps the most profound yet. If your whole life changed when you began to integrate who you truly are, then who are you about to become when you finally accept the most powerful version? When you arrive at this point, something within you has already changed, even if you can't yet pinpoint exactly what it is. There's an opening, an inner vibration, a feeling that what seems distant or abstract has begun to take shape. Jung said that every true transformation begins with an internal shift so subtle that it's only perceived when the process is already underway. And throughout this journey, perhaps without realizing it, you've already begun this shift. You've started to look at yourself more honestly. You've begun to see patterns that previously went. You've begun to recognize internal tensions that have shaped your life for you. And now, at the final moment, everything converges on a decisive point. The point where you consciously choose who you want to be from now on. The truth is that no external change can happen before an internal change. There is no sustainable wealth without a mind to sustain it. No opportunity lasts when a person's psychology is still trapped in guilt, fear, or a sense of limitation. Jung stated that human destiny is shaped by internal images, and that these images can imprison or liberate. By now, you've clearly seen that much of what held you back wasn't the world, but rather the emotional configuration you lived within. But what you may not have realized is that this configuration can be altered, not with uncontrolled effort, not with anxiety, not with external pressures, but with awareness. Awareness is the key to everything. From the moment you see your shadow, it ceases to control you and becomes part of who you are. Now comes the time to integrate this understanding into something practical, applicable, real. The first action is simple, but profound. Observe yourself. Observe your reactions in the coming days with more attention than ever before. Observe when you shrink from something you desire. Observe when you feel fear for no clear reason. Observe when the urge arises to postpone an important decision. Each of these reactions is a direct sign of the internal image that is still reorganizing it. Don't fight them. Don't blame yourself. Don't criticize yourself. Just acknowledge them. Jung said that simple conscious observation already begins to dissolve old patterns because it brings light to what was hidden. The unconscious does not resist the light, it transforms. The second practical action is even more powerful. Start acting like the version of yourself you want to become, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. Behavioral change doesn't need to begin with grand. It starts with small gestures that affirm your new identity. If you want to prosper, make a decision that reflects prosperity, even a small one. If you want expansion, say something you wouldn't have said before. If you want inner security, set a boundary you never dared to impose. Each symbolic gesture is like a seed planted in the unconscious, and it germinates quickly. Jung said that the psyche responds more to symbols than to words, and your actions, however small, are symbols. The third action, perhaps the most challenging, but also the most transformative. Allow yourself to feel the discomfort of change. Don't try to run away from fear, anxiety, uncertainty. They are signs that you are stepping outside of old territory, outside of the cycle that has imprisoned you for so long. Expansion always begins with discomfort. Jung called this the tension of opposites, the moment when you are not yet who you want to be, but you can no longer go back to being who. It is in this interval that the greatest transformations occur, and it is in this interval that you need to remain firm, conscious, present. The fourth action is most silent, yet indispensable. Reshape the image you carry of yourself. This isn't about repeating ready-made phrases or creating superficial illusions. It's about recognizing daily that you are no longer the person who is trapped in old patterns. You are someone who has seen your shadow, someone who has understood your psyche, someone who has begun to bring to light the deepest parts of yourself. And with that, you already possess more strength than you imagine. Write, if necessary. Reflect. Visualize. Question. Gradually build a more real, broader, more complete image. When this new image solidifies, external life inevitably changes to accompany it. Fifth action, finally, is to make space. Make emotional, mental, and even physical space so that the new can enter. This may mean letting go of people, habits, stories, or guilt that belong to the old version of you. The psyche doesn't operate well in saturated environments. It needs space to reorganize and recreate. And sometimes, this space is created through a difficult decision, a necessary renunciation, or symbolic closure that releases stagnant energy. Remember, nothing that is truly yours, only what was misaligned, falls away. Now, as you take a deep breath and allow all of this to make sense within you, the final question arises. The question that Jung would say defines from now on. Will you continue repeating the old image that has limited you for so many years? Or will you take responsibility for becoming the most powerful version that exists within you? The answer isn't in the future. It's now. It's in this instant. It's in the simple fact that by recognizing your own depth, you've already begun to transform. And as Jung taught, when the unconscious is illuminated, nothing remains the same. If this video touched you, if it opened doors, if it awakened something silent within your soul, then let it be recorded in some way. Like this video. Subscribe to the channel to continue this inner journey with me. And if you wish, even anonymously leave a comment saying only, "I am ready." This is not just a gesture. It's a symbol, it's a statement. It's your psyche acknowledging that the journey has begun and that nothing, absolutely nothing will stop you now.